Hello and welcome back to another episode of On the Beaten Track. I'm your host, Rehana. Thank you so much for coming back this week after last week's heaviness. We've kind of shaken that off because I'm doing these recordings in advance now. It really took the stuffing out of me, and I was so glad I had put this one in between this and the next one. To just add some lightness to the situation. Once again, this is a reminder to please subscribe wherever you are listening to the podcast. I really appreciate everybody's comments and subscription and showing the platforms that we are active on it. As I was going through these acts, there were repeat names that repeatedly came up and stories that captured my attention. And I really wanted to put those all into one place and give us a little bit more upliftment. I'll try to do that even through the apartheid era that we're going into next. So these stories are of South Africans who dared to fight for justice when silence was really safer for them and their families. I'm speaking about 4 specific wonderful women that I want to honor, as we all do. They organized, they marched, and they spoke truth to power. We're speaking about Charlotte Mangleke, Josie Mpama, Ray Alexander Simons, and Cissie Gool. 4 lives, 1 unbreakable purpose, dignity and freedom. Charlotte Mangleke, and I really hope that when I clean up the audio, the click does seem to go away. So we begin with the women many people call the mother of Black freedom in South Africa. She was born in 1871 in Limpopo, raised in a humble but educated home. Charlotte was the daughter of a teacher who believed in the power of learning and faith to transform lives. Yet in the 19th century, education for Black girls was almost unheard of. I mean, we spoke about it last week. Laws and customs barred them from advancement, keeping them in domestic service. Charlotte refused. So when the missionary school closed their doors, she looked beyond the seas. She traveled to the Americas in 1890s. I mean, imagine leaving everybody. It's not like you can get on a plane and come home for a couple of weeks. That's a ship journey, right? Joining the African Methodist Episcopal Church, one of the first Black-led denomination to reject racial subjugation. At Wilberforce University, yes, Wilberforce, I know, she met African-American intellectuals and abolitionists who shaped her thinking. W.E.B. Du Bois spoke of double consciousness, the feeling of living between worlds, Black and colonized. Charlotte lived it daily. She continued her education at Oberlin College. Charlotte said, "Education is the key to freedom. Without it, we cannot lift ourselves or our communities." When she returned home, she found a nation tightening under segregation laws. The Natives Land Act of 1913, Mines and Works Act, and the pass laws that controlled Black movement. Charlotte responded not with despair, but with organization. In 1918, she founded the Bantu Women's League, a forerunner of the ANC Women's League, South Africa's first formal women's political movement. She led delegations to the Prime Minister, demanding that women be exempted from passes and allowed education beyond domestic training. It was radical and dangerous. Her social work expanded, creating schools, welfare homes, and employment networks for Black women. Charlotte understood what few yet dared to say out loud. The liberation of women was inseparable from the liberation of the nation. Today, her name graces hospitals and schools, but her truest monument lies in every woman who dares to lead, learn, and rise. It's in the intangible. Then we have Josie Mpama. Born in Potchefstroom, Josie came of age under segregation. She witnessed the erosions of rights her parents once had under the Cape Qualified franchise, a system that allowed Black property owners to vote until the racist laws of 1910 took that away. As a young domestic worker, she saw white wealth built on black women's labor, but Josie refused invisibility. Moving to Johannesburg, she found a city alive with new ideas, socialism, and the promise of freedom. By her 20s, she had joined the Communist Party of South Africa, becoming one of its first female members. In 1930, she organized one of the first anti-pass protests in Potchefstroom. Hundreds of women tore up their passes and marched shouting, "We will not carry passes for our own oppression." I love that so much. People beat them, but Josie's defiance made headlines. She had struck a match that would burn for decades. Through the 1930s and 40s, Josie became editor of Umsebenzi, a newspaper for the working class. She championed the unity of black, colored, and Indian workers, a radical dream under apartheid. Josie said, "We will not be silent. We will fight for our rights, for our children, for our homes." Tingles all over my body, really. In the 19th, Josie joined FEDSHAW, the Federation of South African Women, helping shape the movement that led to the 9th of August 1956 Women's March on Pretoria. Even as the apartheid government banned her from meetings, she continued to write and organize underground, mentoring young women. Her activism directly confronted the Urban Areas Act, the pass laws, and forced removals that ripped families apart. Josie died in 1979, banned and unrecognizable by the state. Yet her voice echoes in every South African who says, "You strike a woman, you strike a rock." That makes me feel so much better than last week. From Latvia to Cape Town came Ray Alexander Simons, born 1913, an immigrant who fled anti-Semitic persecution only to find racial injustice alive in another form. This poor woman. In the canning factories of Paul and Stellenbosch, she saw women, mostly colored and African, paid a fraction of the wage of men working 14-hour days. Ray organized them, forming the Food and Canning Workers Union in 1941. Her belief that freedom without economic justice was no freedom at all. Ray said, "Women are not just laborers, they are human beings deserving dignity and justice." Ray, thank you. She became one of the first communist councillors in Cape Town, bringing working class issues into the council chambers, often facing racist heckling. Ray's influence reached far. She helped found FEDSAW, uniting African, Indian, and colored women under one banner. When 20,000 women marched on Pretoria in 1956, it was her organizing spirit that helped guide them. Banned in 1950 under the Suppression of Communism Act, Ray was silenced but unbroken. From her home, she continued to write pamphlets and plan union strategy under aliases. Forced into exile in 1965, she and her husband, Jack Simons, trained young activists in Zambia, intellectual groundwork for the ANC in exile. When she returned home in 1990, she saw democracy on the horizon, a dream she had kept alive through decades of struggle. Ray died in 2004, her heart forever with the workers who built the nation with their hands. How do you not feel inspired by these women? In Cape Town's Boerkaap in 1997, Cissie Gool was born into debate and defiance. Sissie's full name is Zanunisa, which is also my sister's name, and that's why she drew my attention. Spelled differently, but the same name. Her father, Dr. Abdallah Abdurrahman, led the African Political Organization, which we spoke about the week before, the first modern political body to fight for the rights of colored South Africans. He believed in education and negotiation. From him, Sisi inherited intellect, eloquence, and a taste for the rebellion. But while her father worked within the colonial systems, Sisi saw their limits. She respected him deeply, but challenged his moderate methods. Where he believed in petition, she believed in protest. Where he sought compromise, she demanded change. At the University of Cape Town, she was one of the first coloured women to earn a master's degree and later a law qualification. In 1938, she was elected to Cape Town City Council, where she became known as the People's. "We are not a race apart," Sisi said. "We are one people denied our rights." She defended District 6 residents from forced removals under the Grouped Areas Act, standing in council chambers as bulldozers waited outside. She fought for housing, sanitation, and dignity for working class families of every colour. In the 90s, she joined the Communist Party, earning the nickname the Red Doctor. Alongside Ray and James Laguma, she organized resistance committees, not communities, committees that defied segregation in Cape Town. Her health declined under police surveillance, but her resolve never broke. She died in 1963 before freedom, but never without hope. Lives on in the Cissie Gool house, a reclaiming building in Woodstock, where activities and families continue the struggle for affordable housing, the very cause she fought for in life. Her story and a bond with her father remind us that resistance takes many forms: persuasion and protest, intellect and passion, heart and history. Charlotte gave us education as resistance. Josie Mpama gave us courage on the streets. Ray gave us unity in labor. And Sisi gave us voice in politics. Together they built a bridge across time, from oppression to freedom, from silence to power. Their legacy lives in South Africa's constitution, in women's leadership, in the cry that still echoes from union buildings to townships. You strike a woman, you strike a rock. They taught us that freedom is not inherited. It is built, defended, and reborn in every generation. Thank you, everybody, for listening today. That really just gave me goosebumps, just that wonderful, warm feeling that goes through your body when you read stories like this and you talk about people like this. They really are so inspiring. They stood up for everyone. I remember this podcast of this lady that says, I've had a podcast. She says, we're not free until all of us are free. And I really believe that they stood for that. And where I am today and where you are today is a result of the fight that they kept going over generation and over time. So thank you, ladies, for your service and for putting yourselves on the line when it would have been easier to just be silent. Please join me next week as I tackle the not so happy topic of the acts that really drove home and solidified apartheid, which we'll be breaking down into 3 episodes and getting some of my family story in there eventually. Cool. As always, subscribe, come back next week. I hope you enjoyed this. Keep watching, keep liking, keep commenting. Thank you so much. Bye.